The Fairies Alphabet Book by Beverly Manson. A is for apple fairies. The fairies are happy that the apples are ripe and ready to be picked, for they have spent many long summer days looking after them. B is for butterfly fairies. With singing and dancing, the butterfly fairies teach a young fairy to fly. C is for candy fairies. These fairies build their houses with candy they receive as gifts. D is for dawn fairy. With a touch of her wand, the dawn fairy spreads the news that another day is breaking. Then little fairies rise and wash in the dew. E is for east wind fairy. Have you ever wondered why dandelion puffs do not last until spring? It is because the east wind fairy brushes them with her wings as she flies through the autumn skies. F is for firefly fairies. Firefly fairies brighten the night with their golden light. G is for garden fairy. When flowers quarrel, as they sometimes do, the garden fairy is summoned to make them both happy again. H is for harvest moon fairy. In the cool of an autumn evening when our work is done, little fairies gather food for the harvest fairies' feast. I is for ice fairies. On a cold, starry night, if you listen very hard, you can hear a tinkling sound as the ice fairies decorate the land with icicles. J is for joy fairies. When there is joy in the air, buttercups glisten and bluebells ring, but only the fairies can hear them. K is for king of the fairies. The king of the fairies rides like the wind to return to his palace before the moon is high and the dancing begins. L is for lake fairy. As the lake fairy waves her wand across the water, ripples are tipped with silver. M is for moonbeam fairy. Sitting in a pool of shining light, the moonbeam fairy watches over the night. N is for night fairies. They light up the darkness with their fairy lanterns, waiting and watching for the sun to rise. O is for oak fairies. Hidden in the roots of the big oak tree, the oak fairies love to talk for hours and have tea. P is for princess of the fairies. The princess of the fairies is loved by all, for she glows like the sun and sparkles like the stars. Q is for queen of the fairies. When the queen of the fairies appears, there is music and dancing and cheers. R is for rainbow fairies. Over the hills and far away is the end of the rainbow where these fairies play. S is for sugar plum fairy. The sugar plum fairy is full of fun, a smile from her face, and hearts are won. T is for tooth fairy. When your tooth falls out, the tooth fairies use it to help build their ivory tower. They usually work at night. U is for unicorn fairy. Unicorns are as difficult to find as fairies, but if you are very, very lucky, you may see both. V is for Valentine fairies. There is great excitement on Valentine's Day when the fairy postman is kept busy delivering all the messages of love. W is for water lily fairy. Floating on the glassy pond, the water lily fairy watches over the fish below. X is for kissing fairies. High up in the trees, two fairies sneak a kiss. Y is for Yule fairy. Just before Christmas Eve, the Yule fairy gathers the prettiest branches from the winter trees. Z is for zoo fairies. These fairies have made a make-believe zoo cage out of flower stems, but soon they will let the butterflies fly away, and so will they. The Fairies Alphabet Book by Beverly Manson.